oh my goodness, Alyssa, that is such a sensitive subject. Like, how did you not mark this episode as explicit? I have children with me and they can't hear this conversation about setting boundaries. If you can resonate with that statement and setting boundaries is a little bit scary, but you are tired of feeling depleted, it is time to pause before responding. Today we are talking about 4 tactics to slow down and give your brain time for processing. Let's do this. Hey lady, welcome to the Highly Sensitive Woman podcast. Do you struggle with self-doubt, setting boundaries, or feeling overwhelmed? My name is Alyssa, and I'm a highly sensitive woman who spent years trying to fit in, ignoring my own needs, and living in constant fear of disappointing others. But I finally discovered the power of embracing who I am, and now I don't feel so broken. In this podcast, you'll learn to find your voice, set boundaries, and live with bold confidence and inner peace. Grab a cozy blanket. It's time to connect with someone just like you. Welcome back to the Highly Sensitive Woman podcast. I'm so glad you're here, or if it's your first time, thank you so much for tuning in. I just want to say thank you to all of you for your love and support as this podcast launched into the world. It has been such a joy, honestly. I am a little bit in awe. I never could have imagined that this is something that I would do, a handful of years ago. And when I decided to do it, I surprised myself a little bit. And I am loving every moment of sharing what I know and what I have learned throughout my experiences with you. And I hope that you are enjoying listening. So I'm so glad that you're here. Let's jump in. As a highly sensitive woman, you are naturally very compassionate and you want to help others. And you also find yourself wanting to make sure that everyone else around you is happy and that there's no way that they could possibly be upset with you or that you could make them mad. And you try so hard. And I know, because I did too. And we are designed to help others. So that kind of makes sense. Like, it's just kind of naturally in our DNA. But today we're going to talk about trying to prevent yourself from being depleted by taking a moment to pause before you respond to someone, whether it's in a question or in a conversation, or they send you a text and they've asked you for something. Just taking a moment to pause. Because if you are like me, and if you are a highly sensitive woman, I'm guessing you can relate to this, that you find yourself feeling like you have to respond immediately. If you're in a face-to-face conversation, you feel like you have to give an immediate answer. If you get a text and you get that notification, you feel like you have to respond as soon as it comes in, and that the other person is just sitting there holding their phone waiting for your response. And the truth is, it is helpful to take a moment to pause and give your brain and your body a chance to kind of connect and have a conversation and assess whether or not that is something that you want to do, or what is it that you want to say. So we're just going to take like a little baby step to setting boundaries. And I know that even just thinking about setting boundaries, it's like, oh my goodness, Alyssa, that is such a sensitive subject. Like, how did you not mark this episode as explicit? I have children with me and they can't hear this conversation about setting boundaries, because we have conditioned ourselves to think that it is a bad thing and that we are doing something to the other person, when the reality is, by setting a boundary, we are doing something for ourselves. I'm going to say that again because I don't want you to miss it. Setting a boundary is not you doing something to another person. It is doing something for yourself. And today, again, we're just going to take a baby step into setting boundaries by learning some tactics to take a pause before we respond. Often we respond and maybe we regret it immediately, or maybe it is after some perseverating on it that then we're like, oh man, why did I say that? Or why did I commit to doing whatever the request was? So by taking a moment to pause and connecting your brain and your body and kind of assessing what are your reasons for why you would choose option A, or what are your reasons for choosing option B, you might still choose option A. That is kind of your go-to natural response, and that is totally fine. But to just try to give ourselves a moment to just take a beat and choose our response versus responding in a way that's become our default. You might find that it is easier to implement some of these tactics with strangers or with colleagues, or you might find that it is easier to implement them with people who are really, really close to you and you feel like it's easier because they're a known safe space. It doesn't matter. There is no right or wrong with regard to where you feel safest to try it first. I just hope that you will try some of them. So for me, it was a little bit easier to try some boundary setting tactics with strangers or with work colleagues first. So one of the tactics that I implemented was in a work situation. I had a previous colleague who had a very big personality and was one of those women who I envied so much, who can always have the right words that she wants to say in the moment, and she can deliver them so succinctly and clearly, and she really gets her point across. And my goodness, was I intimidated by that. And when we were having conversations about a joint decision that we needed to make, I would find myself always deferring to her when asked my thoughts or my input or what I thought we needed to do. So the tactic that I implemented to try to slow my brain down a little bit and give myself a moment to gather my thoughts before saying them or just freezing altogether was to take notes when we were having these conversations, because by taking notes, my hand could not move as fast as my brain, nor could it move as fast as she was talking. So by slowing down and taking those notes, it naturally built in some pauses and gave me a moment to reflect on what she had said, because now I heard it and I'm seeing it written on the paper, and it just slowed the conversation down and built in that pause for me to gather my thoughts and give a response. In addition to that, there were times when I would say, I'm going to think about that and get back to you. That came later. That was not one of my first approaches, but it became a very helpful tactic for me, and one that I have used both in professional and personal settings. So giving yourself permission to take a pause and say to the person, I'm going to give it some more thought, allows you to actually give it some more thought and not just give a default response or defer to them. Another one that I use everywhere I go, and I am not kidding about this, those of you who know me personally, like in person, have experienced this with me, I have a cup with me everywhere I go and lovingly refer to it as my emotional support cup. And the reason that I do that is because, well, first of all, I drink a lot of water, and that's just kind of my beverage throughout the day. But the other thing is it kind of stemmed from using it as a tactic to build in a pause. I might get asked a question and I would just kind of pick up my cup and I would take a drink, and giving myself a moment to let my brain kind of process the question that I was asked. And now, every time I'm taking a drink, it is not a tactic to naturally build in a pause in the conversation, but it is one that works really seamlessly and can be used in any situation at any time if you have a beverage with you. And it can be water, it can be your coffee. If you are a coffee drinker, take a sip and a pause. Another really, really helpful tactic is to ask some follow-up questions. We tend to be asked a question and feel like we have to give a response immediately when maybe we don't even have all of the information to adequately answer the question. But we feel like what the person has offered us is sufficient in their mind, so it should be sufficient in our mind, and we should just give a response. But I want to encourage you to ask some follow-up questions. If someone asks you to help them move, for example, I tell you, in my 40s, I'm not as inclined to say yes to that just naturally because my body would prefer that I don't move heavy furniture as often. But it might be helpful for you to ask some questions and get some more details. Would you be moving heavy furniture, or do they just need you to help box things up? Is it going to be an all-day thing? Would they need you for multiple days? Asking those questions so that you can give yourself a minute to process all of the information and make an informed decision or give an informed response that is in alignment with your desires is really helpful. Because what happens is when we don't take these pauses and give our brains and our bodies a moment to connect so that we can answer in the way that is aligned with us, and we don't start setting some of these boundaries, we end up depleting our energy. We deplete it because we agree to things that maybe aren't the best fit for us in that moment, right? Like if I agreed to lift heavy furniture for 2 days in a row, that would probably not be good for me in a lot of ways and deplete my energy physically and have kind of a residual effect throughout my week. But there's also an energy depletion that comes from the perseverating that you do when you have agreed to something that you wished that you hadn't, or when you say something, oh my goodness, why did I say that? I shouldn't have said that. I should have said this. She spoke so eloquently and I sounded like an idiot. And all of that ruminating and perseverating that we do, it takes so much energy and we find ourselves depleted. I just want to encourage you to use some of these tactics to build in some pauses and give your brain some time to process so that you can conserve some of that energy and you aren't so depleted all the time. So just to recap, take notes if you are in a work setting or a volunteer setting where that seems like a reasonable thing. I don't know, maybe you would want to take notes if you're having a conversation with your friend and they're asking you something to do. Whenever that feels like a comfortable tactic, give it a try. Say to the person, I'm going to think about that and get back to you and build in some time. It would also maybe be helpful when you say that to ask them, when do they need to know your decision? So that you have given yourself a deadline and you are still being respectful of them. And maybe it won't feel so much or so scary to set that boundary. Take a sip of whatever it is that you're drinking to build in a natural pause into the conversation. And then ask follow-up questions to get additional details so that you know what it is that you are agreeing to do. I know for me, when I started setting boundaries, it was incredibly scary and I took the tiniest of baby steps. And it was also really helpful to have someone who could help me navigate that process, who could help offer some suggestions. So if you are like me and you could benefit from having conversations with someone who might be able to give you some guidance, I would love to have a chat and see if I might be a good fit and be that person who could help guide you on this journey. If you would like to set an appointment, send me a message at info@lifecoachalyssa.com, and I look forward to talking to you soon. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who may be feeling like she's broken too? I'd love it if you'd leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. It brings me so much joy to know this podcast is helping you. Now it's time for me to stop talking and go soothe my senses in nature. I'll meet you back here next week for another episode. Take care.